I'm going there. It's forbidden, it's wrong, I know, but I'm gonna talk about what I think Stalker 2 will be like. But first, I went digging to see what's already out there.
It's gonna be a cash grab, that's all I know.
I hope it's a little bit like Anomaly.
Well, I hope it's nothing like Anomaly.
Doesn't the Unreal Engine mean there won't be any mods?
It looks linear, not open world.
It's gonna be open world, dumbass.
Oh yeah? You're just some rando on the internet. What do you know?
It all looks pretty good. I'm kind of excited.
Yes, you are shitting or eating blind by not selling in motherland. I will put baby in patriotic Tankolyaska now for recreation. Hurrah!
That sounds like a personal problem.
Guys, have you read the FAQ on Discord yet? It's going to be a very useful tool for any kind of speculation you want to make. So, a quick summary of it is that Stalker 2 will be a non-linear open-world game with a map bigger than Far Cry 5's but smaller than Far Cry 6's, with over 100 hours worth of content, over 30 weapons that are modular, on the go, and further modifiable through technicians. And there will be a multiplayer mode. Everything is going to be done in Unreal Engine 5 with full mod support promised as close to release as possible. The release date is still unknown, the December 2023 date is just a placeholder. So with that out of the way, it's time to use our imagination and piece together the information that we have available to us. I stalked GSC developers on Steam, see what I did there, and played the living snot out of the original games, pixel-peeped all the trailers and screenies that they've given us, as well as read and watched what people's concerns are, all to imagine what Stalker 2 will be like. What are these fools doing? Starting with Pride. As many of you know, GSC Game World is based in Kiev, Ukraine, and that country has been going through an incredible cultural blossoming for a little over a decade now. Great music, products, entertainment, awesome athletes, video games are all making their way west, and we've been enjoying that. It's not really like it was during the post-Soviet days anymore when the original games were made. The post-Soviet cultural background still lingered at the time, and in those games, like most Ukrainian products back then, they were meant to be marketed mainly to other post-Soviet states, so the Soviet language, the Soviet ruble, things like that were all parts of the original trilogy. But I think that now Ukrainians have gotten a lot more intimately in touch with their own country, their own identity, as opposed to the Soviet or post-Soviet one. The attitude has shifted into a desire to share that with the world, Ukraine itself. You play as Skiff, a character named after the Ukrainian word for the Scythian people. They were some of the first to populate the land that we now know as Ukraine. And not only that, but the currency we're probably going to see in the game is the karbovantsy, a currency from the early 20th century in Ukraine. We've also seen the Malyuk rifle.
Nice.
And very likely many more references to and from Ukrainian culture, inventions, and much, much more. It's hard to touch on that topic without mentioning the unanimous decision of Russian military personnel and hardware to cross the border and go fuck themselves, fertilize grain fields, and turn into scuba diver attractions. But if anything, besides de-Russification, I think that this decision has only made Ukrainians even prouder of their work. They'll inscribe "Made in Ukraine" everywhere they can, because they're so proud, and good on them for it. Even if some of the people making the game have been forced to move to Prague, trust me, they are absolutely determined to show the world what the standard for Made in Ukraine really is. This is a big deal for them.
Привіт, я Макс, наративний дизайнер гри STALKER 2. Після перемоги я до неї повернуся.
Побачимось на релізі. Слава Україні.
Speaking of the people who make this game, after stalking their Steam profiles, we can pick up on some neat details. By looking at the games that the developers like, review, and spend many hours in, we have a good idea and a good reference point of what they consider a good game to be. 347 hours in Red Dead 2? Man, like, I can trust a developer who's put 347 hours into Red Dead 2. And after a pretty good look, I think that they have a pretty high standard for the games that they play. And I hope that that means they're going to have a high standard for the game that they make. That's the only conclusion we can really draw from this without getting too deep into speculation. So let's move on to the voice acting and the accents, which is actually something a lot of you guys have commented about, and I have some thoughts that I'd like to share.
I know, right? What the fuck is up with the Monty Python dubbing?
Well, hold your horses a minute. I say that we wait. We've seen the Come To Me trailer with British and American accents, yes, but we've also seen one with Ukrainian accents in the Enter the Zone trailer.
Tell me, do you want our descendants to remember us as cowards? Or as those who dared to venture forward to a new, better humanity?
Died in an anomaly. Shot by loners. Found with a stone around his neck. Thrown off a cliff. Torn apart by dogs.
A number of things could be going on here, and I don't think it's fair for any of us to be upset yet. Because when it comes to voice acting, I think that the most important thing is that the voice actors do a good job. I've seen a lot of people commenting that they want Russian/Ukrainian accents, and if that's you, please consider understanding that that's not really a thing. There's Russian accents, and there's Ukrainian accents, but there's no such thing as a Russian/Ukrainian accent, because accents are tied to people more than they are to the languages. I personally have an easier time telling the accents apart more than the languages themselves when I'm hearing, because I don't know them all that well.
And today I am accompanied by my civilian friends. They act weird, as civilians always do. We all have civilian friends. I think you do too.
That is a classic clip. Dumbass question, completely destroyed by Mila Kunis with her badass Ukrainian speech. А что вы хотите, чтобы он делал, а? А вы зачем здесь? Don't mess with the Ukrainian women, you guys, unless you want to die.
For many of us, Slavic languages are still exotic. A loosely exotic accent may do the trick for us, but I'll allude to Far Cry 6, which is based in my general region of Spanish-speaking countries, and I absolutely hate being this guy, but I have to. The Caribbean Spanish accents that the actors were trying to pull off in that game were kind of cringy for me.
Viva libertad. Viva libertad.
See, like the accents, bro. Come on.
Viva libertad.
Viva libertad.
Let's go home, Grias.
Hers is good.
Find some high ground and use your phone to scout out cameras and alarms.
Yeah, I got you.
Biggest scout out alarm. I have a fucking tank, my friend. I have a fucking tank. Get some high ground. ¿Qué high ground del diablo?
And it actually gets worse for even legendary games like Red Dead Redemption 1. I do appreciate the effort to use accents to make the world more immersive, but when you've got the leader of the Mexican Revolution sounding like a Puerto Rican guy trying to speak like a Mexican,
where is Abraham Reyes?
Here, amigo! Here! Well, look who it is. The American bandit turned bounty hunter who is about...
or a colonel who is speaking something, but it's clearly not Spanish.
Maricón, me das asco. Hablas lealtad, pero eres transparente. Estarás aplaudiendo cuando mi cabeza está pelado, ¿verdad?
No, mi excelencia. Mis hombres y yo estamos trabajando noche y día por su honor.
¿Honor? ¿Qué eres, un muchacho? Jovencito sin vergüenza. ¿Qué diablos este cabrón?
It's actually immersion breaking for those of us to whom the accents aren't exotic. So unless you can get the accents done perfectly, I just say you have your voice actors put in the best performance that they can in general. If they can do it with local accents, it is ideal, but I don't think many people were bothered by The Witcher 3 not having Polish accents, or Les Miserables not having Francais accents, or even the Chernobyl TV show. These are all works that prioritize the actor's best performance. So I say patience, my dear friends. We'll see what the directors and the actors come up with soon enough. In a similar vein, I've also seen concern from you guys that it's going to be a Hollywood cutscene fest, and I absolutely hear ya. That's something I'm watching out for as well. But again, let's just wait and see, and remember what we have now.
You survived the mission again. I'm not even that surprised. And with your help, I think we should be able to do it.
I certainly hope the game doesn't get too much into cutscenes and that it keeps the first-person perspective as much as possible, and that any story developments just occur in front of us and we get to witness it instead of, being taken out of the action to see it. Ultimately, what matters most is not being taken out of the game for the sake of quest and story development. And speaking of quests, if what GSC achieved in Call of Pripyat is anything to go off of, we can expect to see that our decisions in-game will have different consequences that will come to fruition in ways that will make the game feel even more alive. I think that the consequence structure of the player's decisions in that game is very similar to what we ended up seeing in the Witcher games, albeit at a smaller scale. So if that's what we'll get in Stalker 2, I am pretty excited about that. Ah yes, the Pewies. I'm so excited and hopeful that the Pewies we'll see in Stalker 2 are gonna be good. We've seen what the Unreal Engine is capable of, and if a small game like Insurgency Sandstorm is something to go off of, oof, that's gonna be great if so. What we've seen in the trailers isn't enough to come to any conclusions yet, but I do like what I see. If there is something I'd change, I'd add more dust being kicked up for the impact effects and some smokier gunfire. I would love to see that. And something that I wouldn't mind seeing ripped off straight from Insurgency Sandstorm as well is looting ammo from your fallen enemies or friendlies' dropped weapons. There's something about not having to enter an inventory window that keeps the action going and immersion buzzing. But I'll be honest, that's just wishlist material on my behalf. What I have noticed and am a bit concerned about is picture-in-picture optics. They have been teased for Stalker 2, and let me demonstrate what I'm talking about in H3 VR.
To demonstrate, this is what you would see if you were actually aiming at this target at this range. I'm creating our right eye vision and our left eye vision now. So your brain lines those up and you know what you're aiming at. So what we're left with in 2D games with picture-in-picture optics is a view kind of like this. And I'm not sure if you can notice, but all of the information I have access to is gone. I can only see my target, but I cannot see the window up here. I cannot see the left side of the building here. There could be a threat there. And if I had my left eye open, I could. I absolutely could. So, one of the solutions to fixing this issue is game developers could bring the camera closer to the optic. Like this. This is a lot more fair and closer to the actual experience of looking down an optic when you're really close to it.
And when you compare picture-in-picture optics to straight-up zooming on the entire picture in a 2D space, thanks to the Road to Vostok demo, we can definitely see how big of a disadvantage it is to have picture-in-picture enabled. I'm basically sacrificing situational awareness for aesthetic. A comparison that is not made to the Stalker series, but I think should be, is Red Dead Redemption. And hear me out, Stalker isn't really post-apocalyptic. In Stalker lore, the zone has made the world outside a better place. It's enriched it, and people flood into the zone looking for opportunity, fortune, adventure. The alias of the main character of the trilogy, Strelok, means gunslinger. In both game series, you spend your time meeting strangers and freaks and doing their quests, using a diverse array of Pewies to shoot baddies, usually in the form of bandits, but also an army or a massively superior force, all in a lawless wasteland with dangerous wildlife. stopping to take a break from the intensity every once in a while in a campfire, listening to the conversation of those people around you, and enjoying the atmosphere. Of course, there are key and important differences between the two franchises, but when push comes to shove, I do dare say that many of the same reasons I love Stalker are also some of the same reasons I love Red Dead Redemption. I like that there's no silly leveling up of skills that force you to spend time in a menu looking at a skill tree. I like that it's important that you have to take care of your stuff and be mindful of what equipment you have on you. And of course, that's fed by a rich economy.
But us traders are needed everywhere, even in the zone, even in the swamps, and even underground. It's an illusion that the zone is under lock and key, and the army has all the ways in and out sealed. Now think about it. Nowadays, artifacts and rare specimens from the zone can be found all over the world. And your fellow stalkers never have a shortage of canned meat, vodka, ammo, or equipment. Somebody's got to be responsible for all that, right? Well, that's where we come in.
A very rich economy. I could go on forever, and I could also, say some other things, but you get the point. As far as the world building goes and the measures taken to ground the player in it, GSC and Rockstar aren't that far off from each other. Now, those similarities could also apply to opportunities in the multiplayer department. I think that because both games share a very similar set of strengths, the open world multiplayer with missions and game modes within from Red Dead Online is loosely similar to what we might end up seeing in Stalker 2. Obviously, this is just speculation, but I can see us playing Capture the Artifact in a very similar way to how we played Grab the Bag in Red Dead Online back when Red Dead's multiplayer was a thing. Of course, I'm mostly excited for what the single player has to offer, but I don't think that there's any harm in having a multiplayer aspect if the single player doesn't suffer and they do a good job for the multiplayer. Finally, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I am optimistic about Stalker 2. I love the old games, and I've experienced many flavors of them through mods. Some I've loved, others I haven't. But I feel like there's nothing to lose by getting excited. The experiences I love aren't going anywhere, and I have pre-ordered because I plan on creating content for this channel as soon as possible when Stalker 2 drops, and I want to get the transaction out of the way. So subscribe to catch that when it comes. I think it's going to come sooner than we think. Remember, there's nothing wrong with getting excited about a video game. If you like it, great. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. It's just the way life in the zone is. I wish you peace through superior firepower, because that's it from me.